Bismillah, başladık mı? Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin ve salatu ve selamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmaîn. Alhamdulillah, we just completed another Ramadan. Before the Ramadan, as you know, we started with the topic on Sahaba. And during Ramadan, we were mostly focused on the Ramadan chapters, on fasting. And now we're back, inshallah, resuming the topic on the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Muhammadur Rasulullah walladhina ma'ahu ashidda walal kuffar ruhama'u bainahum ila akhir al-ayah. Inshallah, first of all, maybe we can just shortly remember what we already covered on the Sahaba. So we are going through the 27th words on the addendum. The first point we focused on was the insiba and insijam, the reflection of the prophethood, the Risale of the Prophet ﷺ, how the conversation, seeing the Prophet, talking to him person to person, is a miraculous revolution on their personality. So besides all those spiritual perfections, even in the human relations and social life, they showed the Sahaba miraculous impact on our lives. So some of them just seeing him, as we covered at the end of the first paragraph. Let me read it from there, quote it from there. Just how luminous an elixir was the Prophet's ﷺ company may be understood from the following. A primitive man, so hard-hearted and savage, he buried his daughter alive, would come and be honored with the Prophet's ﷺ conversation for an hour, and will acquire such kindness and compassion that he would not step on an ant. And an ignorant savage would converse with the Prophet ﷺ for a day, then go to lands like China and India, very civilized nations of that time, and instruct civilized peoples in the realities and guide them in perfections. So this is a fact that is very much, exemplified and proved by the history. So that nation, which was, even couldn't come together and established a state at that time, all of a sudden in 50 years, the Sahaba was able to brought Islam from Spain to China, the whole entire what we call old world, excluding maybe the Americas. So they became governors, they became the guides, and to all the people at the time, wherever they could reach. This was maybe, that if we cannot evaluate their spiritual perfections, this was, in a sense, a very a solid, evidence in front of our eyes that we can easily observe. I just again, Harun Abi was with us, I guess, at that time in our first session. Hussein Abi joined us this week. So, inshallah, remind me. I'm just trying to summarize, since it has been a month since our last meeting. I'm just trying to, remind myself.
Yeah, thank you. We can remember even on the way, I think, that once we are moving.
In the third reason, we will go through the distinction between the wahy and ilham, I believe. So that was one thing. So the topic all starts with why, you know, all those perfect and, you know, elevated ulama, awliya, none of them can reach to the level of any sahaba. So this was the start point for us. Maybe it is more referring to, of course, some people were claiming, you know, equality, or you know, they being their perfection, being equal to the sahabas, because we have more knowledge, we have the whole Quran in our hand. Yes, some of the Sahaba, maybe they just heard a couple of ayat and then become martyrs, or they just, you know, had very limited sources at the time, but apparently they sacrificed all their lives and they internalized the message of the Quran totally. So it became their whole life. Also, we are kind of going through that in the second reasoning, so I want to just quote that part shortly. So the vast majority of the companions were at the highest level of human perfections, for at that time, in the mighty revolution of Islam, good and truth appeared in all their beauty, and evil and falsehood in all their ugliness, and they were felt physically. Such a difference was apparent between good and evil, and such a distance opened up between truth and falsehood that they drew as distant from one another as belief is from unbelief, hidayah and dalala, and even Jahannam from Jannah. The companions who by nature possessed elevated emotions and were captivated by the highest morality and inclined towards dignity and virtue would not voluntarily stretch out their hands to evil and falsehood, and so fall to the level of Musaylimah the liar and his ridiculous utterances. For the latter was the herald of falsehood, evil, and lies, and their embodiment. The companions' characters demanded that they look to the rank of the perfections, those of God's beloved والسلام, at the highest of the high, for he was the herald and embodiment of the truthfulness, good and right, and that with all their strength and endeavor, they hastened in that way. For example, it sometimes happens that in the market of human civilization and shop of social life, everyone flees in disgust from the fearsome results and ugly consequences of certain things, as from deadly poison, let alone buying them, while the beautiful results and valuable consequences of other things and of immaterial goods attract the general view and demand to themselves like a universal panacea and a sparkle and brilliant. Everyone tries their utmost to buy them. In just the same way, so we talked about this a little bit in the previous session, just to remind ourselves. Maybe, you know, we can come with some examples from our own lives today. You know, let's say, you know, we are very you know, careful about like artificial things. For example, they're talking about, you know, our physical health all the time on the TV. So you can see many people being very you know, sensitive about different products while, you know, consuming some of the food, or, you know, others maybe supplements or medicines. People are always talking about this very harmful things or beneficial things that can really benefit us. So it's very alive in the perception, in our observations, in our approach most of the time. So we can multiply the examples. Maybe we can remember the example in the previous chapter about ijtihad. I start talking about some are some popular things today in our lives, and some other things that we just try to avoid. Since and at that time, the most important thing was to find the haqq, right? To distinguish the truth and the falsehood. The final prophet was among them, and they were just very eager to just reach out and understand the truth that was their the trend in their social lives. In just the same way, in the era of bliss, in the market of human social life, since goods like lying, evil, and unbelief gave rise to such results as everlasting misery, and base buffoons like Musaylima the liar, Musaylima Kazzab, it's certain and clear that the companions who were captivated by elevated characteristics and love of exalted things would flee from them with loathing as from fatal poison. And of a necessity, the companions with their pure natures and praiseworthy characteristics would, with all their strength, emotions, and faculties, be desirous of customers for truth. Be desirous of and customers for truth, truthfulness and belief, which yielded the results of eternal happiness and luminous fruits such as Allah's noble messenger والسلام, as though for the most effective panacea and precious diamonds. However, after that time, the distance between truthfulness and lying gradually and by degrees diminished until now they have become shoulder to shoulder. They have begun to be sold together in the same shop, and social morality has become corrupted. The propaganda of politics has caused greater demand for lying. At a time, the awesome ugliness of lying has begun to be concealed, hidden, and the shining weed of truthfulness has begun not to be apparent. Who can attain to the strength, constancy, and taqwa of the companions in the matters of justice, truthfulness, exaltedness, and right, or surpass their level? So before going to the example, maybe we can little bit try to go ahead.
I was correcting my voice tune.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we can a little bit try to understand, exemplify that part again. It's gonna be a bit more clear in the third reason, but
these days I'm reading a book called Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. It's an audible book, so I'm listening while I'm commuting to work. The book is about distraction that we are having today. Like with our profession, we are following lots of information. We are downloading tons, gigabits of data to contemplate upon. We are just trying to listen and understand what is threatening our world, what is threatening our own life, what is going to happen tomorrow. So we can just add up the layers. But basically, we're following a lot of news resources, and these resources just brings tons of information to our own realm, and we need to distinguish and understand, make sense of each bits of data. So this just steals our focus. So when you read Paikarabi, this part, this immediately, just turned on a bulb with me. There are a lot of parallels with that book. So I think the author, it's very nice. He was complaining his life, like for 10 years, he just summarizes, he just does his profession. He's a journalist. So he just follows everything. And every day he studies like crazy. He works like crazy. And after that, at the age of 39, he decides to just cut off, to go offline, to just hear himself, go to a vacation place, disconnects with everything, just gives his regular phone number to some colleagues or friends. That's the only thing. And he intends to leave for 3 months. So the story will go on. I think it's very interesting. I'm attracted, hooked by it. But the idea is very clear. He's claiming that that's distraction or stolen focus is this century's one of epidemics, if not pandemic, even we can call it pandemic, I think. And everybody's affected by this. So this stolen focus also, like here, Sahabe does not lose focus. They're the best focusing people, to my understanding. And they are really focused on understanding what the creator wants from us, wants from them. And it's obvious, the best product, the best, the best thought would come out of focus. And since they're the most focused people, definitely it will be obvious that they would, or we can claim that they are the best people to talk about the real news of the universe, like what's going on, why we are created, why all these happenings, occurrences, besides us happening. So what does the creator want from us? So this type of news require deep focus, and they are the most focused people in that sense. I think this would be an introduction to this part, maybe.
Thank you so much, Arnav. It's very important, crucial part of the topic. Thank you for reminding that. It's very easy to acknowledge for us, as you said, what we are going through. So maybe we can it will be easier to compare the situation of the Sahaba in that sense, because we really experience it even in a very easy daily task, how corrupted is our attention, and how we have difficulty because of those lots of the bombarded sources on us, but not all of them are kind of guiding us to one direction. And maybe another one to really try to understand is this mighty revolution of Islam on that social environment. So on the one side, there was the last prophet, which is not defined as embodiment or kind of representing the haqq. And on whoever opposes that sun, that nur on his face, right, is kind of representing just the opposite, the kuf, the covering of the truth, the posing of the truth. So kind of the reality was very obvious in that environment. So in our time, on the contrary, it's really, really hard to get what is right, what is wrong, and what is really guiding us to truth and what is really kind of diverting us from the path. It's kind of with our understanding, with our devices being needing balancing. On the other side, the sources out there is not also kind of guiding us to the path. It is it's both-sided kind of. The broadcasting is also not clear for us. It is kind of very confusing in one sense. Maybe Hussein Abi can help us a little bit in that sense.
I think Harun Abi's concept, deep focus, is a very good way to look at these things. And I'd like to say all faculties of the Sahaba were electrified to their utmost level of alarm in their query of the meaning of the enigma before them. That means to understand the meaning of the creation, to understand the creator. Because of that, they experienced utmost spiritual fulfillment. That's what Ustaz Said Nursi says here. Because all their curiosity worked for one and one only question: what does our creator want from us? Or how can we seek his content with us? So that was the revolution of belief, right? Unlike this worldly Islam of today, or the unwilling secularization of daily life in modern, in contemporary world, theirs was the otherworldly Islam. They always sought to understand the expectation of the creator. So this is the difference of this modern age, I guess. We have to consider both worlds, sometimes weighing much more on this world than the other one. So our minds do not usually seek the answers of this question, or we do not tend to work for the other world constantly while doing these mundane things in everyday life. So this is, I think, significant, and Ustaz touches upon it. Anybody else would like to talk about this?
Yeah, thank you, Hussein. I just reminded me when you say both worlds, even we go to a janaza, right? So we're contemplating on our ephemerality and trying to pray for that person who just passed away. And you just go to the next room, right? The janaza is just lying literally in the next room, right? And immediately, I witnessed this several times, really, I don't know, weird for me, but sometimes I also, join the conversation. People start talking about the real estate, different worldly business, just literally in the next room. And during the janaza,
Right.
This is how we are indulged in the world of things. This is our trend. This is our curiosity. We just use our sources and curiosity and mind for all these stuff that's appealing to us in this world. But for that time, for the Sahaba, as you said, the minute they wake up, they were asking, is there any new revelation, right? And any new ayat came to us. And what's the meaning of this ayat, right? How we can apply it immediately to our lives, coming from the farm or going to business, or doing their worldly the daily thing at home. Maybe they were just busy and using their sources, their enthusiasm, their energy for, as you said, what is the will of the Rabbul Alameen from us, right? So that revolution, that might revolution, was very appealing, with very apparent in their environment. Whereas, as you said here now, it's very, very different. Even on the edge of the other world, with just somebody's janaza, we are just sending somebody to his eternal life. We can just turn our face and, you know, close our eyes from that reality. It's very, very interesting. I don't know. It really deserves our attention. You know, how we can focus on that side, and it's a good measure stick, I guess, for to at least, you know, have an idea about why the Sahaba was that much different, even though they're also human beings like us, right?
Right. And most of the time, sometimes people who, you know, promote the idea of returning to the lifestyle of the Sahabas and the Prophet Muhammad, the early community, they portray an idealistic picture, and yet they usually focus on, again, worldly matters of how to govern, how to administer, you know, how to have a functioning economy, and so on and so forth. But this is the essence of the Sahaba lifestyle, right? Always, you know, seeking answers to those, you know, fundamental questions, and trying to satisfy their creator. So why did Muslims lose these, you know, focus? This is my question. And also, I saw that Colin Hoja posted something. He may have a question.
Yeah, I wish Colin Hoja could just chime in and talk to us about, you know, today's Sahabas. I would love to hear if he's available.
Let me read his note. Are there some people alive today? I believe there may be, and most very likely are, who are analogous to the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ. I believe there are some who live the Quran in every word and deed and are excellent recipients of its message and the message of the Sunnah. Can we see them as modern day companions, even though we may not be able to identify them? I guess the point just we are gonna read, or we can just go back to the chapter on ijtihad and read a little bit. Yes, there could be some people. I believe that this is my maybe reflection on that question. Abis can help me.
Yeah.
But it's not just the person and his attention, but again the revolution and the environment and the message being fresh at that time. That's also another difference, which makes Sahabas the companions.
Maybe Biker, we can take with the question of Colin Hoja, and he mentions he doesn't have microphone. So let's try to be his microphone here. So I think that's a great question to talk about, so that we are encouraged. And actually, I see Ustad Nursi talks about, for instance, Risale-i Nur's method and vision. You know, it's kind of there's a concept which is coming in further paragraphs to come. I don't know if we will have time today, but it's the comparison between Velayet-i Kubra and other type of velayets. Like, we know that most of the tariqats or the ways to approach, to understand, you know, the creator's attributes, there are different paths, right? So and we understand getting closer, which is the velayet. The terminology is Velayet-i Kubra here, and it is the Prophet's velayet and the Sahabas Velayet-i Kubra. And I think Velayet-i Kubra, the big, how to translate that? So this giant or huge proximity to say, actually, one of the ways that I understand from Risale-i Nur, actually, the way is this the words acz, fakr, şefkat, tefekkür, like feeling the impotence, feeling the, just lacking of everything, and then feeling compassion, and also, pondering, tefekkür, just contemplating on what's going on. So these four basic words and what they denote or allude to brings us to our ontological condition. And I think our ontological condition is best realized through these words and what they allude to. If I feel that, I'm very weak, I am powerless, and I need compassion, and I need to be thoughtful, I need to be thinking all the time, I think this state just brings me like makes me like a mirror to the sun, and that's the shortest but the most strong path to get closer to the creator. And I think Sahabe is presenting the best mirrors or best people who had this very pure state to receive message or to just understand what's going on, And it is very related with what we're talking, focusing on the real questions and not diverging from real questions. And maybe the other, what you say, mundane things, everyday things, just come secondary in a way. Or whatever profession we are in, they are just taking us to this path, short but strong path, to get closer to the creator. So we see, in a way, we work in every state, we would be just worshiping in a way. In every word we say, in every profession we endure, it's all in a way turns out to be worshipful moments. It's not separated. I'm not separating this world and the next world or the hereafter, but it's just a single world, and the hereafter is just the extension of this world, which is going to be eternal. I think Sahabe has the best integration in this world and the hereafter concept thing, and they are the best focused, and they are the most to the point with feeling their ontological condition to reflect, the attributes of the creator.
Arnav, you have a very good point in mentioning Akrabiye or Vilayet-i Kübra, whereas Kurbiye, as far as I understand, means individual endeavor or striving to raise one's spirituality. Akrabiya is leaving oneself exposed to the light of the eternal South One, and in doing so, one just feels his ajz, fakr, and tries his best to contemplate constantly on the unseen, and reflect and show compassion. So Ustad Nursi talks about why Sahabe had these human perfections. One of the reasons he gives is that they lived in a critical juncture in the history of humankind. That means the last mission sent, the last revelation sent by God to humankind in a perfect way to Muhammad and his community. And that was the beginning of that, span of Muhammadan community. So they had this great opportunity in the beginning. And this may be relevant to Colin Hoja's question as well. Since we are coming close to the end of times, we don't know when, God knows when, but that means we have these greatest challenges, to live up to the standards of Islam, the principles of Islam, and to reflect on the nature and creation. So we had also another similar opportunity, and that may, give us some chances of seeking a similar but not equal, ground to raise our spirituality. I guess, what I'm saying is, clear a little bit to you.
That is what I understand from Koronavi's reflections too. Yeah, even we can sometimes, some scholars, we can hear them defining our conditions in this modern era, right? All the corruptions and the difficulties, spiritual challenges we are going through, they define it as the Jahiliyyah, right? Like what the Sahaba was facing at the time in that era.
Yes.
Corruption. So yeah, that's true. Sometimes the difficulties, challenges might push us more to be cautious and maybe more resisting and more it kind of increases our dedication to strive in that environment, in that condition, under that conditions. So it might be a help for the people of the modern age. So
there's a hadith about it, right, by Karavi?
That's correct, but with all that encouragement, of course, we should take it, as an encouragement, and we shouldn't be despair, having this, fall into despair. However, the question that we started, talking on is a little bit from other angle, I guess, because we have this people who has that ana ego, who challenge to the you put it very nicely, not equal but like, or like them, resemble them. So we kind of claim even superiority, or sometimes equality to them, and see them as like ordinary people. Yes, they were human beings, and they just went through challenges like us, and they have nerves, but still, they were the best who just conveyed the message to us, right? So why they were special? Because of all those reasons. So yeah, thank you. But it was very good. Yeah, go ahead, Hussein Abi. So we
I have
look at
another
from both
question.
sides.
Reflecting on Colin Hoja's question, whether there are contemporary Sahaba like Muslims or not. My question is this: do you think it is possible to have a Sahaba like spirituality in contemporary life without withdrawing from society? Is it possible at all, or is it possible to a certain degree, and how?
Can I have a quick answer on that?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I would say, I think theoretically it's impossible to be Sahabe by quitting society. On the contrary, if you are to be Sahabe, you have to be in society, because we know from their example, they never quitted, only maybe a small group, if to call, just isolates themselves. But most of the famous Sahabe, let's say, just lived in social life and just encountered with all the problems of society at the time. And they were just in the midst of the denial, the kufr, maybe. So
thank you.
think my
Now
immediate
I get
answer
you.
would be, yeah, I think on the contrary. I mean, the first condition would be to be in society, I think.
When you said, Harun abi, I have a quick answer for this question, I was surprised. This is a so complicated question for me. How you can have a so thank you. Yeah, this was a good point. Did they draw out from the life? No, they were within life, and they lived it truly. They had all the different, challenges of the social life, family life, personal life, as we read
Baikar,
in
I
the.
can switch the question on its head, saying, what if the Sahabas would witness contemporary life? What kind of opportunities and challenges would they see in it?
Maybe Harun abi can help us.
That's, I think the key is, as we learn here, it's kind of, the keyword in the Risale is Siddiqiyat, I think, like being trustful. So whatever actions you do, and it's the concept of jihad at the same time, we as Muslims have to strive for being, trustful, righteous at any moment. And that's the challenging thing. And Sahaba, I think, was most challenged because they have to face, they have to take their families against them, right? They have to take all this rooted tradition, junk tradition to say maybe, or useless tradition. They had to just take this in front. And we know how challenging this is today. Take nationalism, take any kind of philosophy that we are subject to today. Who can take just, this type of traditions, just opposing position in an opposing position. So it's a huge challenge. And I think this challenge was much bigger at the time of Sahabe. They had to give up anything for the sake of being trustful, for the sake of just living what they thought to be the message. And of course, that's the power of prophethood, and that's their character to just stick to the truthfulness. That requires many challenging in the society. They're under, embargo. They're under many rules that's against them, and even they just paid it with their lives, that we know from history. But it doesn't matter from their side. From their side, the most important thing is being truthful and just sticking with the truth, and just act what it takes. So I think that's the thing, and I think, Hussein, your previous question was also very triggering to me. Like, why can't we be such Muslims today, or what has changed? Maybe again, it's this secularization of our minds. Like we are trying, right? We are trying to be like Sahabe without understanding what makes Sahabe. We are better off, maybe praying many rakats of prayer, just doing psalm, fasting, just going to prayers, doing this and that. So these are all the face values. Of course, not meaning they are worthless. Of course, we have to do whatever instructed on us by the Quran. But more important is the background. Again, being truthful, being honest, just having the morality at the utmost level. These are the attributes that we need to have. Once we are far from it, then it's kind of, Said Nursi uses the term like, it's just licking the face of a sugar, something like that. You never have the right to get into the core of it, because the concentration is just on the face value. How many rakats, how many days, how many, months of worship, or which places, how many times you did Hajj, how many times you did Umrah, this and that. So these are very, very face values, and these are very shallow or reduced religious activities to say. But Sahaba, far from these, just at the core of the moral values, and just having this moral values makes it a pot where religion just melts in. So without having this path, religion is not helpful to Muslims even, I would say. I don't know if this was a very, very harsh introduction, by the way.
No, thank you. It was very explanatory to me, because we just started saying that, now I have these hundreds of hadiths in my computer, right? Or many of brothers around me, not myself, but have memorized the whole Quran cover to cover. But maybe it is not that valuable, knowing one ayah, but really, digesting it, right? And then applying it to my life truly, and really knowing what it means, and what Rabbul Alameen would be pleased with me, how he's gonna please with me, is kind of more valuable than all that soul knowledge, just knowledge.
Also, Ustaz talks about in other parts of the Risale-i Nur collection that Islam, the truths of Islam have already been proved, over and over in every century by thousands of scholars, and receiving support from now a 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. We now see this fact and still fall into questions or suspicions at times. But the Sahaba had the greatest challenge, because they had almost 50 people in the beginning, or maybe 100, and yet they were the pillars of the community who prevented the extinction of the religion of Islam. Dedicating themselves to the greater and greater jihad, and also spiritual jihad. So yes, without them, probably we couldn't talk about the existence of Islam today. I guess that's why they are the greatest.
Comparing ourselves to them, right, as equals, but now right, on the face of a slightest event, which sometimes have the we're hesitant to express our identity, or we kind of hide our Islamic identity. But at that time they just challenge the whole world, right, on the face of all those hostility, and that's very obvious in that sense.
Can you read Colin Hoja's remarks again? Because
yes, I was going to do that. The prerequisite for being a wali is being immersed in society. I think if the Sahaba witnessed our life, they wouldn't recognize much that was different from their lives, because at base our society is in extreme jahiliyyah, as was theirs. So while the bottles may have changed, the wine is the same. And brother Fatih, I guess, Sahabas, radiallahu anhum, goal was solely Allah's consent. The main difference, they lived for Allah. They demonstrated a great tamsil. We have 10 more minutes. I maybe will not have to discuss it truly, but it's kind of wrapping up what we already talked. So I want to just go read rest of the second reason, and maybe a little bit of the third reason, if Avis don't have anything to add at this point. One time go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, go ahead, Spiker. I was going to say,
one time it occurred to me, why couldn't wondrous persons like Muhyiddin al-Arabi attain to the levels of the companions? Then while saying Subhana Rabbi al-Ala during the prayers, the phrase's meaning was unfolded to me. Not its complete meaning, but its reality in part became apparent to me. I said in my heart, if only I could perform one of the 5 daily prayers in the same way as this phrase, it would be better than a year's worship. After the prayers, I understood that thought and state of mind was guidance, indicating that the high degree of the companions' worship could not be reached. In the mighty social revolution brought about by the lights of the Quran, when opposites were separated from one another, and evils together with all their darkness, details and all who followed them, and good and perfections together with all their lights and results, came face to face, at such a stirring time, all glorifications of Allah and recitations of His names expressed all the levels of their meanings freshly and newly and in a pristine and unfaded fashion. And recitations, glorifications and recitations of Allah's names expressed all the levels of their meanings freshly and newly in a pristine and unfaded fashion. So too, under the crushing of that mighty revolution, all the senses and subtle inner faculties of people were awakened. Even senses like those of fancy and imagination, and in an awakened and aware state, received the numerous meanings of those recitations and glorifications in accordance with their own perceptions and absorbed them. Thus, due to this wisdom, when the companions whose senses were awakened and subtle faculties alert uttered those blessed words comprising the lights of belief and glorification, they did so in all their meaning, and they partook of them with all their senses. However, after that revolution and upheaval, the subtle faculties have gradually sunk into sleep, and the senses fallen from that point of realities into heedlessness, ghafla, like fruits under the veil of familiarity. Those blessed words have gradually lost their delicacy and freshness, simply as though drying up due to the air of spirituality. Only a little freshness remains, and this may be restored to its former state only through drastic surgery of a reflective and reasoning kind. Thus, it is because of this that only in 40 years can others reach the virtue and level the companions attained to in 40 minutes. This is very interesting. It's kind of answers one of my questions. We hear the Quran all the time since our childhood, and then maybe we say these holy words, right, in salat many times in a day, but most of the time it's not. I don't see that impact on my own life, but sometimes I listen to the these stories of these convert brothers, sisters. For example, one person just takes the Quran and it reads just the translation, right? Just first 20, 30, 50 other pages of the Quran, and he changed his life. He changed his religion, right? And they share their experience, saying that immediately as soon as I read these words, I said that this could not be a man's word, right? This could be only Allah's words. So this is the only the ghafla or the heedlessness or the ulfa, right? The customary view in my own understanding. But if we add all the changes in centuries during the time and the society, the distinction, getting true and false together, it's such a thick veil, I guess, between us and those words of the Quran, which, like in the Risale, right? When we are reading it, it takes us again to ponder upon and consider those daily words that we, utter in Salat and in our dhikr, in our tasbih again. So this part was very interesting for me. We are kind of at the end of our session, but I don't know. I want to turn to Abis, Hussein Abi, and Harun Abi. Any words at this point?
Yeah, there are lots to say. Actually, I would say this is somewhat very deep. Or you say interesting, but at the same time very deep part of this special section to say. But it gives a clear message. Like, do I just have, or how much of the Subhana Rabbi al-Ala have in my prayer compared to Sahabe? And why is that so? I think that's the question and kind of the search for the answer for this part. And I think it is beautiful, very well articulated. It's a very Nursian way of showing us how submitting the freshness of Quran verses is at the core of our revival in a way. And unfortunately, how we are, or myself, is far from it to understand.
I would like to say, Baikarabi, what Ustaz says here means, I think, it is as if the Sahaba receives a sort of inspiration, not revelation, of course, but a sort of inspiration at every moment of their prayer. And it's remarkable. It's usually we can achieve that sort of, level of contemplation and awe at, great happenings around us only through, reading the books or, making some retreats, focusing on spirituality for a while being, purified from the, weights of mundane things of our lives. Only then we can achieve some level of clarity on our spiritual mirror to reflect that light. But Sahabe has it, at every moment almost in their daily lives, while praying, while doing some work, physical work, maybe they still, think about those questions and meanings. So it's kind of getting a sort of a kind of inspiration. That's what I understand. Do you think does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much, Zainabi. That was great. Unless we have any closing remark, I want to stop at this point. Thank you for joining us. Inshallah, may Allah make the Sahaba stars in our lives, and may Allah guide us on their path and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Alhamdulillah, Allah, created such individuals as examples and co-models for us. Let's make a short dua, inshallah, to close. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin alladhi qala ashabi kan nujumi bi'ayyihim iktadaytum ihtadaytum فخير القرون قرني وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.
Thank you, Baikar Abi, for moderating.
Thank you for joining us. Inshallah, keep us in your prayers. Most probably we'll continue one more session next week, if not one another after this. Inshallah, see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.